Hello, welcome back to Ycft. We're back talking about some Hammer. Today we are talking about Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter, released in 1974, directed by Brian Clemens in his one and only directing pursuit. Brian Clemens, we should probably talk about him first because he's a massive name in British television.
Yes, sure
Very
is.
prolific writer, showrunner behind British giants like the Avengers, the New Avengers, the Professionals.
The Professionals, yeah.
This guy was massive. This was a very big deal, and he had wrote for Hammer before. He'd wrote on Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde.
Yes, he had.
So this was his attempt to go out and make a film. He kept it quite close to home though, because the whole opening sequence of Kronos coming over the hills is actually filmed right behind his house.
yeah, I know. Thinking of the travel budget there, Brian Clemens, producer hat on.
Now, so Captain Kronos follows Kronos, the vampire hunter,
Yes.
shockingly, and his hunchbacked assistant, whilst they help a town that is under siege by vampires. The film opens with two young girls, one of which is attacked by a cloaked figure, having all of her youth drained from her, so she becomes an old woman. Not blood specifically. Something that is established in this film, which is really interesting for the 70s vampire movies that Hammers were putting out. This film directly says there are maybe up to, I think it's like 1,000 different species of vampires that attack in different ways and can be killed in different ways.
Yes.
I think that's really interesting, and it really opened the door for Hammer for what they could do with vampires. And that means when Kronos arrives, not only do they have to find where the vampires are, but they also have to find out how to kill this particular type of vampire.
Yes.
You can already see that Hammer intended for this to be a series, or Clemens at least intended for it to be a series.
Wanted it to be a series.
Yeah, he portrayed it as, I can't find a direct quote, but I've seen a lot of reviews of it saying that this seems to be Hammer's answer to James Bond.
Their methods and their motive for attack can vary in 100 different ways.
And the means of their destruction.
Aye, the traditional stake through the heart does not always hold good, you know.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It was something we said when we were watching it, and we had no idea that that was a thing either, but it was just an observation we had.
Yeah, and you can see the similarities. Like Kronos ends up in a new situation. He beds a beautiful woman, in this case, Caroline Munro. I imagine in sequels he would have, had a new attractive female companion. He has a collection of gadgets. In his case, it's vampire killing equipment.
And is very proficient in using them.
Yes, and there's an investigative side of it, and then there will be a big showdown at the end and then he gets to ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
The Avengers is very Bond-esque in itself anyway, and you can absolutely see. And we watched a video by Kim Newman and somebody else whose name I can't remember, talking about Hammer in the 70s, in particular Captain Kronos, how it almost feels like a pilot to a TV series.
Yes.
What did you actually think of the film? Because this is actually a Hammer film that we both watched for the first time for this one. It's been highly recommended to us.
I liked it. I had a good time watching it. I think the idea was absolutely there. I think the execution overall is a little bit flawed, and that's not... It might be a mixture of Clemens being a first-time director, brilliant screenwriter, clearly a very good producer, really good ideas, really good with stories, but even though I think the film is shot quite beautifully.
Oh, it's impeccably shot. There's some of Hammer's nicest looking scenes are in this film.
Yeah, definitely. So I did think sometimes it felt a little bit slow. We've watched it twice now, all in all, and I do like it. I do think the film is a good time, but it's not a perfect Hammer movie, I would say. But then what is?
What a lot of that comes down to is, so this had a small budget for a Hammer film, but it was a big budget for Clemens, obviously coming from the world of TV, but he still had to make concessions. He said in interviews, even going far back as like the year 2000, that he envisioned Kronos having like a gold carriage that would have vampire killing equipment kind of like built into it, kind of like Bond's car. But the budget just could not stretch to that.
Couldn't stretch to that. No. It's a good idea, though.
And I agree. I do really enjoy this film, and there's certain elements of it that I think work so well, and it is so beautifully shot.
Yeah.
I do have some issues with the film structurally. Number one being that there's not enough vampire killing for Kronos, Vampire Hunter.
No, there isn't, actually.
The first vampire that he actually kills, which is an incredible scene.
Yeah, it is good.
Where the doctor who he first meets up with and is trying to help him, find out who the vampires are, he gets turned and he just goes to Kronos, and it leads to this incredible scene where they just have to test what's going to kill him.
Literally trial and error.
They try staking him.
Yeah.
They try hanging him. They go to try and burn him. The guy then tries to go back in his chair and hang himself again because he doesn't want to be burnt. And it ends up being the stainless steel cross that he has around his neck impales him, and that kills him. This film specifically says a vampire only bleeds when it's near death.
When it's near death. The other thing that I find really interesting about that scene, well, actually, there's lots of things it's really interesting. Clemens was also a big fan of this scene. I think this was probably one of his favourites of the whole film. It's quite silent how the scene plays out. This film has a really good score, especially the opening and with the action sequences, but this particular sequence, there's like an eerie sort of stillness to it.
Yeah.
And
because it's a character we've got to know.
It's a character we've gotten to know, but it's also compounded by the fact that the vampire that they are trying to kill in this scene is very conscious of the fact that he's a vampire and does not want to be a vampire. He is allowing himself to be executed, essentially. Like he's trying to help the vampire hunters kill him. It's a really interesting thing and not something that I've seen in a Hammer movie before. So Clemens was doing something that was very different ultimately. So yeah, I enjoy that and I applaud that a lot.
I know we just talked about a really great scene in amongst my complaints, but my main issue on that is that is the first vampire we see him kill.
Yeah.
He will not kill a vampire until the end of the film.
Yes.
I think we needed another scene, maybe even something tacked on to the opening of the film, as of him killing a vampire somewhere else and receiving a letter to go to town. I think could have resolved that.
Yeah.
I think the investigative side of it goes on a little bit too. So we see several different methods, like they bury dead frogs in a circle around an area, and if one of the frogs comes back to life, then that means that the vampire's gone. We see a couple of these different methods. Maybe they could have cut back on one of those in order to show more vampire action. I also think it's missing a little bit of the swashbucklingness I think really would have fit a project like this.
It absolutely is. There's a scene that comes maybe about the midway point in the movie, and it takes place at an inn where there's these three, what do you call them? Like
ruffians. They're being
ruffians.
They're being paid by
the big bad.
The big bad.
To track down Kronos and kill him.
Yeah.
And kill his accomplice. In this bar, everyone else in the bar is a little bit intimidated by them. They're rude to one of the girls that works there. It's heavily implied that the main ruffian has slept with her and he's refusing to pay her. And then, Kronos and Grost.
There's also a random blind woman in the corner that has nothing to do with the plot.
Literally nothing. I was convinced we were going to come back to her at one point. No, we don't. She's just sort of there in the background, a very interesting extra. Kronos and his mate come in.
To make sport of a physical affliction is both impolite and cruel. After all, I wouldn't dream of calling you Ratface, Fatty.
Kronos deals with them ultimately very quickly, very swiftly, but it really does feel like you could take that scene out of this movie and the film would still run smooth. It almost feels like this scene is interrupting the main plot, like the main sequence of events, because these three guys ultimately, like, they don't serve any other purpose in the film.
I think the purpose they serve, because we have two moments of Kronos fighting people in the film. So that scene, and it's literally a case of he pulls out his sword, two quick slices, and all three of them are dead. And there's several moments through the film where we showed that Kronos is actually like incredibly fast. Sometimes done to comedic effect, which I quite like. Like Cameron Monroe just looking, he's just gone. The next one, after he's killed the doctor, the town kind of turn against him. And whilst they are basically going to rob a stainless steel crucifix to turn into a sword, the weapon they can use to kill the head vampire, he has to dual-wield swords and take on a massive mob. That, for me, is the worst shot scene in the film. It's not very well choreographed. It's lots of just quick cuts to him, like, taking people out, making them fling their swords and stuff like that.
Agreed.
For me, the purpose that it serves is it shows how skilled he is, so that when, at the end of the film, when it's a resurrected Lord who was known as one of the greatest sword fighters in the world, that was ironically killed by...
Plague.
No, it was gunfire.
Oh, was it gunfire?
I mean, he's literally got like pellet holes in his face.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So Kronos has to have a sword fight, and he really struggles in the fight. And because we've had these 2 moments of him doing it incredibly easily, it makes the threat feel bigger. Even though this is the first time we've seen this character, he literally gets brought out to fight Kronos.
Yeah.
That sword fight is so well done. And it makes the first 2 feel worse when the end one is done so very, very well.
It is a really cool moment.
It's really good. You can tell that they trained to do it, and it works. It just works. It looks
cool.
great.
It
and we've
is
not
cool.
really seen stuff like that in a Hammer film before.
No, but again, would it have been better to have seen more scenes, throughout the movie, peppered throughout the movie, rather than building up to this one big moment, which I agree is cool. But considering that Kronos is kind of meant to be like this swashbuckling hero, we don't really see a lot of that in the movie. Like, where the film should be quite fast and action oriented, it's actually quite slow. Like, there's a lot of scenes between him and Caroline Munro, who he saves from the stocks, and they have this sexual affair that's not really serious, but they kind of just go along with it for the ride, I guess. She's clearly very infatuated with him, and he likes her, but again, very Bond-esque. You can tell that this is not like a long-term thing for him. There's some interesting things going on with the lighting in those love scenes. Shot again very beautifully. And from what I understand, Caroline Munro, she did not want to do nudity, but she was okay with it for this scene because once she was on set, she could see that Clemens was much more interested in the lighting and in the cinematography than he was with doing anything graphic or gratuitous.
It's much more of a tease than anything. I know that she had quite long hair, so they taped her hair over her breasts, and usually it's like beams of light are revealing like the midsection, a little bit of her face, and the breasts and nether regions are kind of covered.
Yeah.
And she saw how tastefully it was being done.
Yeah.
And
so
she
was
speaks
fine with it.
still extremely fondly of working on this film.
This is her favourite film in her whole filmography, she said. She had a really lovely time. She was annoyed at the fact that the film was delayed. She didn't understand why, which it is a shame, and probably did kill this film ultimately. But yeah, I think those scenes between her and Kronos...
They're not essential to the plot.
They're not essential to the plot.
They're just fun-looking scenes.
And I would happily replace them with him hunting down and killing more vampires. So I think we have to look at it in the context of this was meant to be the first of what was hopefully going to be many iterations and adventures of Kronos. This was meant to be a little taster of what was to come.
Yeah, you can see it in the way that they've designed Kronos as a character, played by Horst Janssen.
Yes,
German. He is German. He looks incredibly German.
He looks hunky.
And he's a really good-looking man. He's got this sort of like smouldering intensity about him. And he has this like jacket just draped over his shoulders for the entire film, except when he's fighting. And the way they kind of designed his character was almost with merchandise in mind. So he has this like big ring with the Kronos seal on it. And on a documentary we watched called House of Clemens, they did specifically design a lot of his elements with stuff like that in mind. Stuff that would be built on in later films, but the ring was designed to be like a seal for a letter, and you could get rings that were like going to stamp the K onto pages and stuff like that. But when you look at the actual design of the character, so we know he has a bite mark on his neck from when his sister became a vampire and bit him. Yeah. Establishing that in these vampire films, it's weak men that will turn from a bite.
Which again is also interesting.
He has a big scar around his side that is never looked upon. We know he's a war hero, but one of his weapons is a katana, and we know from Seven Golden Vampires shows that there are vampires all over the world. So this is a character that clearly has a lot of history and a lot of experience that could be delved into in later films.
Definitely.
I think they were trying not to bog the film down in his backstory, but they ended up bogging the film down in too much of this film's current vampire lore. Even down to like his stakes are extremely ornate. Yeah. And they're quite long. Usually when we see stakes, they'll be small with a hammer. These are stakes that are designed for killing vampires at a distance. These are weapons designed to kill vampires effectively. And that stuff I think is really interesting. It is a cool direction for them to take vampire movies. What is the name of the big bad family in this film?
The Durwoods.
The Durwoods. So I actually think the misdirect with who the lead vampire is actually really well done.
I enjoy it too. Yeah.
We follow these two siblings, one of which is played by Shane Bryant, who we previously talked about in Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. I think he has way more to do in that film than he does here.
Yes.
Apparently, he was also supposed to be the personification of the devil in So the Devil, a Daughter, but that never ended up going ahead.
No,
but that's two Hammer films he made that then got delayed. Basically, what they also intended for Ralph Bates was maybe for him to take on.
Yeah, we've heard this before.
Yeah,
like
more roles.
Yeah, it's a shame because he's a good actor, Shane Bryant.
He is.
His character is called Paul.
Paul, of course, there's another Paul.
And his sister is called Sarah.
And their mother is incredibly ill. What is the mother's name in this?
Well, she's Lady Durwood.
Just Lady Durwood. And I started assuming because the vampires are draining youth, and when we do see her in bed, she's clearly wearing some type of mask. I assumed that the sister was going to actually be the mother, and the sister was the one in bed that was really old, and the mother had been draining the life force to become young again.
Yeah, like swapping bodies almost.
Yeah, and I do think the film does lead you down the way of assuming that these two characters are the vampires.
In fairness, yeah, because
they're also weirdly quite incestuous.
I was just going to say...
they have too much chemistry.
They are, yeah. Like Shane Bryant and the actress that plays his sister, who is called Lois Dane, I think. They're really interesting to watch because they're of a similar age. They're very mysterious, deliberately mysterious.
They look like siblings.
They look like siblings, and there's a few moments in the film where they are also physically quite close with one another. Like there's a really good, interesting conversation where he's just left their mum's bedroom looking after her, and he says something to his sister like, "Why don't you go in and see her?" And she's like, "I can't. I can't go in and see her. She makes me ill just to look at her, at how old and decrepit she is." And then he sort of like touches her face, almost quasi-seductively, and he's like, "Well, that won't happen to us, dear sister. No, not us."
What has happened to Mother will not happen to us, dear sister. I promise you. It will not happen to us.
The film is sort of playing with this idea of, all right, these two are up to something. Something not right is happening in the Durwood mansion.
Turns out they're just weird.
No, they're just weird. Like, they're just weird siblings.
Yeah. The big bad is
their
the
mother.
mum. It is.
Wanda Bentham.
She is excellent.
She's also a babe. She's also Benedict Cumberbatch's mother.
Yeah.
Just sidebar.
So she takes this mask off the reveal that is her that has been draining the youth from all the young women in the town and has resurrected her husband.
But also, she is a Karnstein.
You forget. I'm a Karstein by birth. And the Karsteins are blessed with many dark secrets.
Because we've not touched on these films yet,
Yeah.
that doesn't make that much sense.
We will inevitably dive into that, but it is interesting.
Yeah, I'll
because
briefly touch on that now then. Karnstein is the name of the family name of vampires in the Carmilla novel that Hammer made a trilogy of films on between 1970 and 1971.
known as the Karnstein trilogy.
Yes, which is
Vampire,
The Vampire Lovers, Lust for the Vampire, and Twins of Evil. That makes this film, bear in mind this was filmed in 1972, basically a bit of extended universe. I believe Vampire Circus in 71 is also loosely linked.
Interesting, yeah.
So that shows that the Karnstein trilogy was the start of a whole new series of vampires that all play by different rules. In this film, in the Karnstein trilogy, they can walk in the daylight. And that, for me, is incredibly interesting. So as soon as she announced that, it's like, all right, there's that link.
Yeah.
And her abilities are incredibly different. She can hypnotize people. Like they decided to use Caroline Munro as bait, essentially. So she goes in as a traveler and has to spend the night. Oh, I've already forgotten the name of the actress that they originally wanted to play Caroline Munro.
It's Kate O'Mara.
Yeah, this is around the time they really wanted Kate O'Mara under contract, and she just kind of didn't. She wasn't interested in doing it. I could see her in this role, but I think Caroline has a sort of like innocence about her that I think really works with this role.
I agree on the innocence, but I have a lot of issues with Caroline Munro's character.
I mean, she's not the best written character in the film.
No, she's not. We come back to this issue time and time again with Hammer of just not writing female characters particularly well. Sometimes they get it bang on. And
Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde.
Dr. Jekyll, Sister Hyde. Obviously, we've not discussed them yet, but I think the Karnstein trilogy, they do really interesting things with the female characters. Caroline Munro ultimately does not serve the plot really in any way. She's there to look very pretty, occasionally aid in the investigation, but really
She's just kind of there to look pretty.
Just sort of there, yeah.
But I'm really glad she had a good time working on it.
Oh, she loved this film, so all played to her, and I enjoy seeing Caroline Munro, but just the character itself is not.
Yeah.
She's nothing really.
Lady Durwood basically seduces her and through the magic in her eyes, basically makes her freeze to the spot. And she tries to do the same thing with Kronos when he jumps in last minute to save her. He's put a mirror on this stainless steel sword that they've made. They make this incredible ornate sword with basically, we see them hammering away at metal, then suddenly it's done. But he uses the mirror on the sword to reflect her powers back at her and freeze her. It's very like Medusa.
So she hypnotizes herself, basically, yes, in her own reflection.
And then leading to the incredible sword fight and the defeat of the vampires.
She has been aging, presumably, because she's old as hell, and has been killing these young women in this little town and in this village to preserve her youth, which is a very interesting idea. Again, it's something different, when you talk about vampirism sucking the life force out of someone. It's also something that they do in Countess Dracula. And that is obviously based on a real life story of Elizabeth Bathory, who, famous serial killer in like the 16th century who killed young women bathed in their blood because she thought that their blood would preserve her skin. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing that Hammer were revisiting.
Yeah. We also weren't a massive fan of Countess Dracula.
No.
That starred Ingrid Pitt from The Vampire Lovers. They also wanted Ingrid Pitt for this film to play Lady Durwood.
Which I think could have worked.
Which would have made the Karnstein link
much more stronger.
Much more stronger. I can link this back to Ingrid Pitt in another way. So in Countess Dracula, they dubbed her entire performance, which Hammer were known for doing. Very rarely did they do it for the lead character of a film. She was not happy.
I don't blame her.
They also dubbed Horst Janssen.
Yes, they did.
And
you can tell.
Yeah. I've forgotten his name as well.
Julian Holloway.
Julian Holloway, who does not look like Kronos in any way. I suppose Kronos doesn't say a ton throughout this film. Again, just kind of like smouldering intensely. I'm just going to look sexy and mysterious.
Yes.
So yeah, it was a strange choice to hire a German actor but then not want his German voice.
Yeah, like they were shocked at this German actor sounding German. Like same thing with Ingrid Pitt. Was she Polish?
Yeah.
I think it's like, why hire someone just because dubbing to me feels like it's going to take a lot of work. It's a lot of faff to do, and especially to dub an entire performance. So why not just hire an actor that has the accent and the dialect that you want? It doesn't really make sense to me.
Especially with Ingrid Pitt. It's like, well, you'd already had her in Vampire Lovers with her natural accent.
Yeah.
And if they'd continued with Kronos films, then they would have had to continuously dub him.
A sword fit for a king. Or a Kronos.
Strange choice.
It is a very bizarre choice, and also I think just really offensive to the actors.
I do want to talk about the release of this film. As we've mentioned several times, it was filmed in 1972.
Yeah.
And it was delayed until 1974. We are in the back end of Hammer here, and Hammer they were doing a lot of interesting things. They were basically letting directors do whatever they want and throw as many ideas as possible at the wall, whilst also retreating back to some of their known successes, like bringing Peter Cushing back as Frankenstein, bringing Christopher Lee back as Dracula. Basically what the MCU's been doing over the last couple of years. For whatever reasons, they decided to push Kronos, and pushing it was probably the worst thing they could have done because The Exorcist came out in 1973, which changed the landscape entirely. This was a time where Hammer, they weren't getting the funding from America. Americans basically didn't want English Gothic horror anymore. So having this film come out after The Exorcist is the reason why it was a financial disappointment. Brian Clemens said he was devastated that it didn't do very well.
He was really devastated.
But he did live long enough to see it become a cult classic.
Yeah.
And this film has its fan base. We have issues with this film. I really like it though.
I do enjoy it.
I've watched this again, and it did live on in comics. But yeah, that pushing
killed it.
But I also think Hammer's strategy at the time is questionable. You look at Frankenstein. They did Horror of Frankenstein with Ralph Bates.
Yes. rejuvenate
To try and rejuvenate with a young
character.
actor.
Yeah.
But then the very next one, right, let's bring Peter Cushing back. The Curse of Shane Bryant, that got delayed.
Yeah.
At the same year they made this, so they just finished the Karnstein trilogy over 2 years. So it's like, right, we're going to make Captain Kronos something new. Like, we're going to blend genres. It's going to be gothic horror, spaghetti western, action.
Yeah.
But we're also going to do Dracula AD 72 with Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
They
just
I
didn't
think they
know
should.
what to
They
do.
just didn't quite know what to do, and I love AD 72.
Oh, I do as well. I will never hear anything bad said about that movie.
But
Just,
bringing it out in 74, you are now 3 years separated from the Karnstein trilogy. So that name of Karnstein just is not going to have the impact
It's not.
of a trilogy that was already lost its legs basically after the
No.
first one anyway.
It's not.
Usually Hammer films that they'd released in the same year they were filmed anyway, and I do think they should have just stuck to their guns and released it in 72, and I think it would have had
They should have just gone for it.
a better chance.
They should have just gone for it. I mean, I think the one thing that is consistent in this era is, yes, they're trying different things. The Karnstein trilogy, let's make vampires sexy. Kronos, let's introduce action and a swashbuckling hero. AD 72, let's bring Dracula into the modern day. Satanic rites, let's make it into a spy espionage sort of thing.
Basically like the Avengers with
Like
Dracula.
the Avengers with Dracula. They're trying different things, but the one thing that is consistent, I mean, maybe eliminating satanic rites from this group actually, is it is still very gothic. Fundamentally. Karnstein trilogy, it's still set in this very nebulous time.
Hammer's own little time
Hammer's own little
period.
time period. Yeah, exactly. Somewhere in Eastern Europe where it's almost, still quite Puritan. It's still very gothic, so they were clearly very hesitant to stray from that. They were trying new things, but ultimately gothic was just where they stayed. They didn't really uproot from that.
It is a shame that we're basically witnessing at this point the last breath of Hammer as it
the
was.
dying gasp of Hammer.
The dying gasp. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the films were bad in this.
No, it doesn't. That's the thing. It
in this
doesn't at
era.
all. There were just maybe a few misfires given the time period.
Yeah. Also, something that was working against this film. I've used several terms, and we got this again from that same interview with Kim Newman. The terms that we used to describe this film, like extended universe, so the extended Karnstein universe, genre bending, these are relatively new terms of the last 20 to 30 years. The terms to describe this film did not exist in 1974.
No.
So arguably, it was a little bit ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And it's theorized that one of the sequels they might have done would have to have Captain Kronos meet Christopher Lee's Dracula.
That's where they were leading to, maybe.
I think that would have really worked. If you could have had Peter Cushing's Van Helsing in there as well. Their timeline would have got a bit confusing there with AD 72. But they really could have done something interesting there. And I think if they went forward, he doesn't always necessarily have to fight vampires. I think this film perfectly sets the stage for him fighting maybe witches. There's probably a world where 7 Golden Vampires could have been a Captain Kronos story. And I think it would have worked better than sending Peter Cushing out there for it.
He's meant to be a descendant of Van Helsing, I think, if I'm remembering right.
I can't remember. I try to push 7 Golden Vampires out of my brain.
I do think that what you've just said is backed up by Michael Carreras, who obviously, big honcho in Hammer at the time. He was really disappointed that this film didn't do well, but his response to it was to blame Brian Clemens. So I can't remember the exact quote, but he basically said that, that the ideas that Clemens had was just, didn't work for us. It was a misfire. It was a mistake to take a chance on him. Too many big ideas. Didn't really know where to land. And ultimately, I think what he's then basically saying is it was Clemens's idea to create this kind of larger universe where these characters are very interconnected, the worlds are connected. That, it was a very unique idea for cinema at the time.
Yeah. And it's interesting that when Hammer eventually did go off to do TV, they chose to do anthologies, which, from what you've said, they're very good.
Oh, Hammer House of Horror I enjoy.
But also, anthologies were not in at the time. But I get why they wouldn't go and make a Kronos TV series.
Yeah.
Because it had flopped.
It hadn't done well.
In the past, we've said like Taste of Blood of Dracula is probably like the most primed for a remake. I think Kronos would work incredibly well today,
Yeah, I
because
do think you could
especially
remake
over in America, British period dramas in particular do incredibly well over there with Downton Abbey and that sort of stuff, Peaky Blinders. Captain Kronos, I think, would perfectly fit into there with a bit more action to it. I mean, look at how well Hammer's 2012 Woman in Black did as obviously a period piece. Captain Kronos could really work, and you were trying to work out like who you think would be good to play Kronos.
Yeah.
I suggested maybe Jacob Elordi, I think, could be quite good at it, and obviously he's quite big at the moment.
He is, yeah. This might have just been because I watched Emma, the 2020 Emma adaptation, quite recently, but Johnny Flynn, who's an actor that I discovered in that, I think could really do a good job as Kronos. Physically, I think, he's got the blonde hair.
He looks like Horst Janssen.
He does.
A
he
little
has
bit.
a look of Horst Janssen. So I think Johnny Flynn could be a really, really good shout. I mean, I don't know how old Horst Janssen was when he did Kronos. I don't know how old Johnny Flynn is. I think he's probably like 40 odd. So I don't really know what the cutoff is age-wise. But I think he would be a good shout. And then also just a few ideas down for the other characters. Mia Goth as the Caroline Munro character, I think. I mean, I love Mia Goth, but you don't cast Mia Goth and then just not give her anything to do. You'd have to make that role a lot more substantial.
I think she'd make a really good Lady Durwood.
See, Lady Durwood, I see more as like a Rebecca Ferguson type.
Rebecca Ferguson would have been fantastic.
I mean, she can do like a sexy, dangerous aristocrat in her sleep. So Rebecca Ferguson might be a bit too much of a safe choice.
Yeah.
Gillian Anderson, I think, is like another actress of that sort of ilk. She could do a really good job with it. So yeah, you could have fun with doing a remake of Kronos, for sure.
I mean, arguably, Universal kind of did one. Because this film has been compared quite a bit to, I think it was 2004, the Universal's Van Helsing.
Yeah.
That is, obviously, he is a monster hunter and bringing together all the different Universal monsters. Something that Universal have tried to do for years at various different degrees of success. But that film has a lot of the DNA of Captain Kronos.
It does.
With more of the swashbuckling. I personally really like that Van Helsing film. I think it's because I was like 11 years old when that came out and I saw it in the cinema. And I fell in love with it. I adore the fun element of that film. But also, like Captain Kronos, was a bit of a financial disappointment. But they had also planned for that to become its own series of films. So arguably Universal, like Hammer borrowed a lot from Universal. I think later on Universal borrowed a lot from Hammer.
You could be right. It's a little outlier.
Yeah, it's such an outlier.
In Hammer's filmography.
And I'm glad I have it. This Blu-ray, it's not the new special edition Blu-ray they have, the box set. I think it's basically the same rescan of it. There is 3 different versions of the film. Like, the cuts aren't too different. It's the aspect ratios that are different. Each one of those has like a minimum of 3 commentary tracks. Some with Brian Clemens, some with Caroline Munro, with Clemens' children.
Yeah.
Then just like, people like critics and reviewers doing it. I've never seen a film with so many
Such a deep dive.
commentaries.
Yeah.
There's a great documentary, one that we've quoted a few times, which is like Hammer Horror in the 70s. There's the House of Clemens, which to be fair wasn't very good. That was a bit, I don't know if it was just a problem with our Blu-ray.
But the quality
wasn't great.
No.
There's several hour-long interviews with Brian Clemens
There's
from
one
like
with
the 90s.
Horst Janssen as well.
Yeah, there's a 2008 reunion. There's so many special features in this.
Oh yeah, it's a goldmine.
It's absolutely worth it. The only thing I noticed that's missing, every other Hammer Blu-ray that we have has a definitive making of. Obviously not without footage, but a lot of people talking in depth purely about the film. This doesn't have it because they want to concentrate so much on talking about Brian Clemens. And I think that speaks volumes as to how this film was seen when it came out. But it has its audience now. It has lived on in comic book form. And I think I'm glad that it's finally being seen for the kind of the gem that it is. Like it's an imperfect gem, but whenever is there a perfect Hammer film?
Quatermass in the Pit.
Yeah, actually, I was proven wrong straight away. Quatermass in the Pit is a perfect Hammer film.
It's subjective, But in my opinion, Quatermass, I think, absolutely deserves that mantle.
Yeah. But
yeah.
this is a very fun film, and I think it would be looked at even more fondly if we'd got the sequels that could have paid off from all of the legwork that this film does. It's always the risk when we see it a lot today again, let's look at Universal with the Dark Universe. They launched films with so much building up it needs to do for its extended universe, then just to not go anywhere. They tried, Van Helsing was their first attempt at the Dark Universe. Then it was Dracula Untold. And then obviously very famously Tom Cruise's The Mummy. And these films spend so long delving into the backstories and setting up the world that now they just feel like very heavy films to watch and slow films to watch because the sequels never happened. This film does kind of fall into that trap a bit.
I agree. I agree with that. It is a fun film, and it was made in a very, very sort of topsy-turvy time for Hammer. I think all of the films made, 1970 to 74, 75, they're all, I don't know, like you can tell that Hammer is experimenting, but it's experimenting within the context of we don't really know what to do, so we're just going to throw lots of shit at the wall and we're just going to see what sticks. And they just didn't have faith in this one, and I do think it's a shame because it is a good film.
Yeah, they couldn't compete with certain films coming out of America.
The landscape was changing, as you say.
3 films in total led to the death of British film in America for a long time. Obviously, we've mentioned The Exorcist in 1973.
Yeah.
There's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, that film, you could find it in the UK, but it was mostly banned in the UK. This film had an X rating.
Yes.
It does not deserve an X rating. We had very, very strict censoring back then. Yeah. But then in 70, I've forgotten when Halloween came out. Was it 78?
78.
Yeah, 78. We saw a film that was made on the budget of a Hammer film become a global phenomenon. And the slasher era was born. That was kind of, you would say, the final nail in the coffin. Hammer had basically stopped making films at this point. But then suddenly we had America doing what we couldn't do.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, to be fair, Halloween was the first big one, but a few years prior, obviously, Black Christmas had come out, which many people consider to be
the granddaddy of slashers.
Of slashers, yeah. And that was 74 or
specifically
76.
Specifically seasonal slashers.
So it's very close to Kronos, which is it's kind of mad because they couldn't be two different films. But no, again, low budget, minimal cast, minimal crew. So it's similar ways of working, but just a very different reaction. Yeah,
and Kronos kind of just got lost. I've said this several times. I think it would have done so much better if they'd released it in 72. When it was filmed.
Well, I think it's because yes, we know that this film became a cult classic, but I am finding it hard to pinpoint exactly when in time
it became a cult classic.
Was it in the 80s? Was it in the 90s? At what point did people start rediscovering this?
It seems like it played a lot in festivals. And Kim Newman said that's where you saw it played at a festival, which was the perfect place for a film like that. People that already liked it, and then later on, at some point in the 80s. He saw it as part of a double bill in the cinema. So I think this has been, and we know by the year 2000, Clemens knew that this had a following and that the film was loved by its fans.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's being rediscovered now more and more because Hammer are going through this new phase of revitalizing some of their older films and picking Kronos. They must know, because making these new Blu-rays, it's not cheap.
No.
These new box sets that they've been doing. And to pick a film that didn't do that well, as I think it's the 4th one they've done, maybe, it's very early on, they know that it has an audience.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, naturally, I bought this without even watching it because I knew it had a reputation amongst fans. And I did enjoy it. So, do you have any more notes on this one?
I don't have any more notes. I'm glad we've got it. I'm glad we watched it. It's a flawed Hammer movie, but I'm glad it exists, and I am glad that it is getting the recognition it deserves. But it's a fascinating one in Hammer's filmography.
It's flawed. It's flawed and at the same time ahead of its time.
Yes, yeah, bizarrely, and I agree. I do think it is worthy of a remake. Whether it will happen or not, I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, we'll find out. So, I'd like to throw it off to our channel members. Thank you for constantly supporting the channel. It is greatly appreciated. Your membership goes towards
Always.
picking up Blu-rays
Yeah.
like this one, and to the wider audience. Like, have you seen this film? We know some of our audience members have seen it because it's been recommended
Yeah.
to us. So again, thank you for recommending that. I also just want to point out, in the Hammer Vault book, you can show like how little they thought of this film, because this is kind of all there is on it.
That's all the text that there is.
There's barely even any posters. I do like here, Brian Clemens drew his own storyboards for it because he was nervous, and yeah, I just find it very cute. We don't even have a full picture of Captain Kronos, but we do have a full-length picture of Caroline Munro.
Caroline Munro.
And it's got a couple of critical reviews that were not very nice to it at the time.
No, people just not understanding it.
Yeah, just not understanding it. And yeah, we're glad it's getting the recognition it deserves. We really enjoyed it despite its flaws. I will 100% watch this film again.
Yeah.
And we are so excited to delve into the Karnstein trilogy. See, this whole video is basically a primer for
Yeah,
talking about the Karnsteins.
Yeah.
It'll probably be a little while because we have a couple of projects in the works.
Yes.
But it will be this year that we talk about the Karnsteins, and we are very excited for that. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you when we see you.
Bye.